Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and discussion time. I'm smiling because somebody's doing lawn maintenance outside my window, so you're going to hear the blower going. But oh well, time to get on with it. It is Friday the 18th of June, 2021. And we got two big stories today. Potential tropical cyclone, almost tropical depression, almost tropical storm, whatever you want to call it, in the Gulf of Mexico. It's number 3, the third system of the year. And then we have a new tropical storm in the eastern Pacific, not far off the coast of Mexico. Its name is Dolores, and we'll talk about that and more in today's update. So let's first take a look at our tracking map. This is on the HurricaneTrack Insider site, an interactive map that I really like. I'll brag about it from time to time. Put together by the great Will Woodgate over in the UK. He did that for us out of the kindness of his heart, and he's one of our supporters, and I like showing off his work. So what we have here, the potential tropical cyclone in the Gulf, and you can see its track over the next few days, and then the new system here, the new tropical storm in the eastern Pacific. And we'll start with this real quick. It's too bad we can't get the trajectory to come up a little bit more like this and maybe get some moisture up here into the desert southwest. Luckily, this is not forecast to be very strong. We can click on the different forecast points. Nearing hurricane strength, and it might make it to Category 1 hurricane intensity before coming into Mexico. But the big threat down here will be the heavy rain. And as you can see on this particular map extent, the physical relief map here, there's a lot of mountainous terrain that goes right up against the coastline in Mexico. And so, yes, heavy rainfall can cause flooding and other concerns, so just keep that in mind if you have interests in this area. Luckily, not too intense overall, but a flood threat nevertheless. Meanwhile, in the Gulf, we do have our potential tropical storm, cyclone, depression, whatever you want to call it. It's a big weather maker, bigger than you and me, and so we need to pay attention to it. Here's the forecast track over the next few days. Coming into the central Gulf Coast, Louisiana, just can't escape these things. I don't know what the deal is. Somebody breaks some mirrors in Louisiana all at once or something. So you guys have like all this bad luck with tropical cyclones. I don't know. It's pretty hard to fathom that we've had so many systems impact Louisiana in the last year or two. Luckily, from an overall impact perspective, this is not going to be a real big deal for Louisiana itself. Specifically speaking of the Louisiana coast, not too many problems overall. Some onshore flow, a few water level rises here and there. Anybody recovering from last year's hurricanes may have a little bit of disruption in your work, if you're, especially people working on docks and piers, bulkheads, that kind of thing. But we know it can be worse, that is for sure. So there's the track map, and here's what the Hurricane Center is saying. And it's still just potential tropical cyclone. Remember, National Hurricane Center issues these PTCs, potential tropical cyclone advisories, when they are anticipating a system becoming a depression or a named storm, and it allows them, it's all about the protocol and just being able to do things in a certain standard way. It allows the government, the Hurricane Center, and local offices, weather service offices, emergency management people to all work together to issue watches and warnings before you have a named storm, especially when the models and the guidance are indicating that a named storm will form. It allows the public officials to get ahead of the curve just a little bit and buy a little extra time, especially when it looks like it could be significant. And so that's why we have this PTC thing. I know it's an extra layer of stuff to have to digest and try to understand, but it's almost Tropical Depression 3, and it's sitting in the Gulf there. Wind is about 45 miles per hour, and you say, well, come on, that's like tropical storm force, right? Yeah, the wind is, but the organization is what we want to look at, and we can see that here in the visible satellite animation, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. Definitely trying to get a little bit better organized up in here. But it's not quite there yet. Remember I told you yesterday it's going to look like a big comma shape or a candy cane or whatever you want to call it. And that's exactly what it looks like. And this is typical for June. You're not supposed to see strong hurricanes anywhere in the Atlantic Basin in June. That's not a typical event, thank goodness. I mean, seriously, we're going to have it rough enough, I'm sure, once we get to August and September. So here it is down in the Gulf, very loosely organized. There's a few areas of spin and low-level circulation evident down here. The recon plane has been flying from the hurricane hunters out of Keesler. You know, there's a lot going on with it, a lot of heavy weather on the east side, yes, but it's not a real big wind event, and the pressure is not very low at all. And so the biggest threat is going to be rain, and we can see that here on this awesome radar mosaic from Mark Nissenbaum over at Florida State University. I really like when he puts these together. So here you go. Here's another version of it for the Central Gulf Coast. And we can see what's going on. There might be a little low-level swirl here, you know, and there's a mid-level swirl maybe up in here. Just one large area of onshore flow, lots of moisture, rainfall, gusty winds. Kind of a nasty weekend starting today, coming up for a good deal of the Gulf Coast here, from portions of the Florida Panhandle westward through Alabama, coast of Mississippi, into southeast Louisiana over here. I wish I had better news for you, but I don't. I mean, at least in terms of this kind of being a washout today and tomorrow. It's just the way it goes sometimes. And with this, though, comes the threat of rip currents. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. You're going to notice, if you go to some of these beaches, that they're closed for swimming. And that's going to irritate a lot of people. I get it, but the lifeguards and the local officials are trying to keep you safe. And that is a really big deal, these rip currents. So please take that into account if you're heading down to the beach. And speaking of it, here's the city of Gulf Shores just as an example. Waters are closed. You know, they rolled it up, and it's to keep you safe. You know, you can, I don't know if they'll let you put your ankles in or what. Maybe they just, it's totally strict. Whenever they do this down here in Wilmington and on our beaches, I just don't go to the beach. But the double red flags, that means that's it. It's closed, and you're going to see that often and kind of widespread across the region. And here's a summary from the Weather Service, by the way. You get to this off of weather.gov, weather.gov, and you look down here and look for rip current statement right there, and all these different categories, this patchwork of watches and warnings and other hazards. Click on rip current statement, and it'll take you to the page where it has everything. And there's, you know, some for San Juan, Puerto Rico, not related to the system in the Gulf, obviously. So you can scroll down. Mobile, Alabama, high rip current risk, and that goes through Tuesday evening. So yes, I know it sucks. You're going down to the beach. You've been maybe away for a year. Stuff's opening up, and they close things down because of this. I'm telling you, it's a real thing. Ask anybody that has lost a family member or a close friend to rip currents. I got to keep you alive, because if you're not there watching me, there's no reason for me to be here. All right, it's I might as well go do something else, and I don't want to. I enjoy this job, and part of it is keeping you safe. So I got to tell you the bad news sometimes, and this is one of those cases. Rip currents are a big deal. So read through this if you're curious about where you're heading, whether it is the Alabama, Mississippi, Florida Gulf Coast. I don't know if the Mississippi Sound generates rip currents nearly as much as elsewhere, like Alabama, because you have deeper water offshore there in Alabama, Dauphin Island, Gulf Shores, the Florida Panhandle. You know how they say a lot on YouTube videos, hey, tell me in the comments, whatever. I hear my kids' YouTube videos saying that all the time. I don't know everything, so yeah, enlighten me. Do you guys have big rip current threats in the Mississippi Sound? What is it? Hancock, Harrison counties down there, Gulfport, Biloxi, that region, Waveland. I don't know. That's a good question, so let me know. Post it in the comments, and let me know. I was just thinking about that. I can't remember a time when I've seen rip current issues in the Mississippi Sound. But I digress. Let's move away from that. It is important, and I wanted to point it out again. And now let's look at the modeling as my printer over there talks to me. The GFS. Here it is, 12Z today, 850 millibars. And I mean, what a great example here. It could not be served up to me on a silver platter, as they say, any better than this. What is that, you ask? It is the difference between number 3 up here, PTC 3, and Dolores down here. We'll put a D for Dolores. And the organization, and exactly what I'm talking about at that 850 millibar level. This is like a big, giant trough up here, very sharp at that, trying to close off. But it's not there yet. There's just not much reflection of this horizontal vorticity, or the conservation of angular momentum with a low pressure area in the northern Gulf. But there is, absolutely, with our tropical storm in the eastern Pacific there, Dolores. So what a great example. I mean, seriously, that's one for the books. This is what we look for right here. This is it. This, not so much. But you can still see there is energy in here. You've got the low-level flow coming in at the 5,000-foot level. That's what 850 millibars typically represents. There is energy in here as suggested by these colors. The vorticity, the spin in the atmosphere is there, but it's not concentrated around a low-level center. So if you go back to the satellite imagery real quick, you can see how that plays out. All this energy coming up in here, trying to close off up in the northern Gulf, but it's just not quite there yet. And when it does, it'll be fairly meager, weak, whatever. It's just not going to be very strong. So let's move this out into time, and this is valid this evening. And you can see the differences between the two. Those Dolores down in the Pacific, getting closer to the Mexican coast. PTC 3, whatever it is, up there into Louisiana and the lower Mississippi Valley, opens up into a broad circulation, lots of heavy rain. That moves on up by Sunday morning into Alabama and Mississippi. And really, most of the energy, you can see, just kind of goes away. There's not much left of it at all. Nice subtropical ridging here. Look at these height lines, even at the 5,000-foot level. That is just deep Bermuda High, Western Atlantic Ridge, whatever you want to call it. Summertime, that's what that shows. So this moves along, and you notice by 72 hours, there's just a little reflection of it here left over as a trough is coming through to kick it on out. And I bring that up. Let's leave that there. That's 72 hours. Let's see what the Euro shows. All right, interestingly enough. So here's the Euro, same time frame overall, 850 millibar, cyclonic vorticity. There's the signature of the potential tropical cyclone in the Gulf. There's the signature for Dolores in the Pacific. And so let's move this out. This is every 24 hours. This, the Euro, is more aggressive. By tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, it's indicating a little bit more organization with our system there in southeast Louisiana, very close to New Orleans, Baton Rouge, that vicinity. We'll see. I mean, we'll be able to look at the vorticity chart in the morning from the University of Wisconsin site and verify, does it look like that? It certainly is a rather stark contrast to the GFS. Let's back that up to 24 hours. There's the GFS, there's the Euro. The Euro is a little bit more pronounced. So let's go out to 48 hours. It really hangs on to it over the deep south there, the southeast U.S., in contrast to the GFS, which is not as much. This is more amplified, more energy associated with it. And if the Euro is right, and this is as amped up as it shows, there will be a severe weather threat, heavy rainfall, maybe the threat of flooding for parts of Alabama and Georgia, getting in towards the Atlanta area, some of those hilly, elevated terrain regions of Georgia and Alabama. So, yeah, this will matter. And then finally, by day 3, Monday morning, yikes. I mean, this is my neck of the woods, practically over eastern North Carolina. That's quite a signature in the Euro. And if we move the GFS out to 72 hours, okay, I mean, if there was ever a time when you can say that there is a duel between these two models, this is it. And come Monday morning, we'll be able to see with our own eyes who wins this battle. I mean, my goodness, it's like, what the heck? So I will be watching that closely because this is, I'm going to sleep in a little bit Monday morning anyway. This is, it's going to be stormy, windy, and rainy and I may even need to get out into the field there, Outer Banks. I don't know. I mean, wow, what a contrast. What a contrast. So we'll wait and see how this plays out. I think we'll know like by hour 48. Does it look like that? And even tomorrow morning. So anyway, there's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, then Tuesday, it whisks out into the northwest Atlantic, and that is pretty much that as far as that system goes. So the threat of severe weather, hadn't talked about this often lately, because usually severe weather starts to relax once you get to June. An enhanced risk today up in the Ohio Valley and vicinity with a large squall line developing, so keep your eyes peeled to the old radar scope or whatever radar app you use, weather.gov, your local weather people that you follow, that kind of thing. And then tomorrow, as we get into the weekend, as I said, down here with that onshore flow and the storminess, well east of the center where whatever it is makes landfall, that's where your biggest threat will be for any severe weather related to that in the Florida Panhandle and southern Alabama. And then a slight risk up here in the upper plains. You know, if I could just teleport out there, I would. Might see a supercell or two. Probably some beautiful structure associated with those. And then day 3, maybe, we'll have to see how this pans out down in my neck of the woods related to the leftovers of that system. We'll see. You know, it's all going to depend on what the energy is and how much spin in the atmosphere remains. Again, that battle there between the Euro showing that and that's going to be an interesting thing to see how it plays out. All right, I am on Patreon. I've talked about this before. I'll talk about it again real quick. We connect it to our HurricaneTrack Insider site. That's right here. And if you become a member on Patreon at the $10 level or higher, investing in the future of what we do, you get access to all of our HurricaneTrack Insider stuff, including this map over here, which does have our cameras, our camera systems we put on there, as well as other stuff. And these are our permanent cameras, by the way, that I just activated. We have one down here in Port Aransas, if it'll load while I talk to try to ad-lib my way through waiting for Nest to populate the screen. Come on, don't let me down. There it is. Port Aransas, we got one out in Nevada. It's going to soon have live weather data. This is the data from my garage. I'm getting ready to send a computer out there to Paul to have him hook it up so we can get some temperatures out there when it's 500 degrees. This is Rodanthe. Just giving you an idea of what we do with this crowdfunding. Every one of these is located at one of our patrons' sites. All of these people are some of our patrons. And they set these cameras up for us, or they already have one, and they share the link. And sometimes Nest takes a little while to populate. Whatever, you get the idea, but you do it through Patreon. This is what we do. This is how we crowdfund the work. But beyond that, we crowdsource a lot of good stuff. You know, the money is what makes the world go around, yes. And these memberships, collectively, we're talking over 600 now, around the world. It really helps to do a lot of good things with our project. The unmanned cameras, we're going to have 20 of them this year to put out. The weather stations, all of those sensors that I was just showing you, the cameras and the weather stations that we can put on there, all of that has to be crowdfunded. I'm not sitting on a trust fund like the Bruce Wayne Foundation from Batman. Seriously, I'm not. And I got you guys to help make this happen. And that is a remarkable, remarkable thing. And I wanted to bring it up because I hadn't talked about it in a while. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack if you're in the position to get involved. We'd love to have you. All right, also would love to have you follow on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. All of it's HurricaneTrack. That's the brand. Just look for the logo. It's easy to recognize. And you can follow and subscribe and like and share and leave comments and all that good stuff. It's great. And like I said the other day, 99% of everything that comes through on social media on my end is fantastic, very positive and upbeat, and I appreciate that. Let's keep it going. All right, have a great rest of your Friday, and if you're heading down to the Gulf Coast this weekend, one more reminder, please be careful because I need you back, because again, without you, no reason for there to be me. And with that, I am out of here. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you again over the weekend.